Well, for more on the upcoming elections, we're joined now in the studio for some analysis by our political correspondent, Charlotte Potts. Good morning, Charlotte.
Hi, Terry.
So, Martin Schulz, the SPD candidate, has managed to shake up the whole election landscape in a matter of just a couple of weeks. How has he managed to do it?
Well, it's politically a very fascinating story, I think. Martin Schulz, in his first speech, he said, I want to be chancellor. I don't want to be a vice chancellor under Angela Merkel. I'm going to fight. And he's been doing that with very much determination and conviction in these past weeks. So he's been portraying himself as a bit of a political outsider, at least from this establishment in Berlin. I mean, this is a man who does not have a high school degree, who started out as a small-town mayor here in Germany, who then moved to the European Parliament as a member, became their president. But he's not known to very many Germans. He's not tainted in Berlin politics, and he doesn't have kind of that baggage that other politicians have here in Berlin. So he's coming with a clean slate, and that definitely helps him in the beginning now. We call it the Schulz effect. That's definitely, we've been seeing a lot of that in recent weeks.
Well, many analysts in Berlin seemed shocked by this development in the election. Many were anticipating a rather boring campaign with Chancellor Merkel being the shoe-in, as it were. Did anyone expect such a rapid turnaround in the SPD's fortunes?
I don't think anybody expected that. It really came as a surprise. I mean, we've seen that the numbers for the SPD were plummeting. They were at their historic low just a few weeks ago. And I think what's been also very surprising is how much Martin Schulz has turned around the political agenda of the SPD. He's been saying that he wants to roll back labor reforms that were done by his own party. He wants to extend unemployment benefits and basically setting a new agenda for social welfare, putting the focus on social justice. I think that sits well with many voters at times where economic hardships are in focus. And he's trying to build that truly social democratic platform. Yesterday, for example, he came out, he says he supports same-sex marriage in a way that it's not only homosexual partnerships that we have in Germany right now, but it would allow homosexual couples to adopt children, for example. And that is something that clearly distinguishes him in the opposition to Angela Merkel.
So Martin Schulz is clearly shaking up the political landscape here, bringing some suspense into the election. But
Right.
Charlotte, the big question is, can he sustain this momentum until the election in September? What do you think?
I mean, it is the big question that everybody is talking about here in Berlin. It's a tough one to answer. I think it's right now more about appearances and about substance, much more, we have to see if he can hold up this agenda, if he can actually set the topics in the long run. It also depends how good he keeps it up. I mean, we know that the Conservatives have a lot of opposition research on his time in Brussels, so we'll have to see what kind of skeletons he has in the closet. But for now, we definitely know that this is going to be a much more exciting campaign than it looked like just a few weeks ago.
OK, so you mentioned the Conservatives, Chancellor Merkel's CDU parties. They obviously are preparing to take on Schulz with everything they've got. What does his candidacy mean for Chancellor Merkel?
Well, Angela Merkel is clearly under pressure now. Her campaign is under pressure, and the Christian Democrats are under pressure. It looked like a few weeks ago that there was no alternative to Angela Merkel, that she would definitely be elected chancellor again through her Conservatives. Now we are seeing she's in her, it would be her fourth term. She's running for the fourth time, and Germans know what they can expect from her. After Trump, she's been kind of been portrayed as a defender of the liberal West, and being the one that would stabilize Germany in the long run, and now comes in this political outsider. So people have been asking, can Merkel still attack? When will she start campaigning? Her strategy is that she's going to start that probably in the summertime and not until then, which is something that many in her Christian Democratic Party see as a problem. They say, you should attack right now.
OK, a problem for Chancellor Merkel and her Conservatives in the form of Martin Schulz. Charlotte Potts from our political desk, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here to talk more about that election coming up in September is our correspondent Charlotte Potts, who's watching those polling numbers very closely. This is quite a surprise, Charlotte, I suppose to you as well. Tell us, how did Martin Schulz get the SPD to leapfrog past the CDU in the polls?
Well, it's a fascinating political story and a fascinating rise. He portrays himself as a man of the streets. He does not have a high school degree, started out as a small-town mayor, then moved up to become the president of the European Parliament. And now here back in Berlin, he's a bit of a political outsider, at least to the Berlin establishment. And that kind of reflects, so he is untainted. He doesn't have that baggage, and that kind of reflects in the platform that he's offering. He wants to roll back labor reforms that were done by his own party, kind of conservative, more conservative labor reforms, roll them back, extend unemployment benefits, for example, and focusing very much on social justice in his campaign. He also announced that he wants to legalize same-sex marriage, and all that is in very firm opposition to everything that Angela Merkel and her Christian Democrats want.
So Martin Schulz has hit the ground running, as it were. What does his candidacy mean for Chancellor Merkel and her campaign?
Well, it's definitely putting pressure on her campaign. It's putting pressure on the Christian Democrats. It means that there is a clear alternative to her now, and she needs to start campaigning very toughly, I would say. The interesting thing is, or the big question here, she's running for the fourth time. How much energy does she still have? How much is she still being able to attack this candidate, Martin Schulz? And how much of a vision can she paint for the next 4 years for Germany? She hasn't done that yet. We are hearing that she doesn't want to start campaigning until this summer. And some members of her Christian Democrats are upset about that. They want her to start campaigning very aggressively right now. So there is this time an interesting choice. She's always campaigned on the promise, there are no experiments with me, you know, and that sat very well with voters.
Safe pair of hands.
Exactly, stability. And now German voters in this election face a choice. Do they want that stability, or do they want the alternatives offered by Martin Schulz?
So Chancellor Merkel is clearly facing a challenge from Martin Schulz, but the election is still 7 months away. The big question, can Martin Schulz maintain this momentum until September?
Yeah, that is right now the big question that everybody here in Berlin is asking. Right now, it's more about appearances than about substance, and we'll have to see if that is actually going to last. He will have to deliver on his immediate campaign ideas. Also, he might have some skeletons in the closet. There is an investigation right now into his presidency in Brussels, into questionable bonuses and promotions he did there. So we'll have to see what comes out of that. But for sure, it promises to be a very exciting campaign year ahead here in Germany.
Charlotte, thank you so much. Charlotte Potts from our political desk.
You're welcome.
Joining me now is our political correspondent, Charlotte Potts. Hi, Charlotte. The SPD was just at 20% in January. Now it's ahead of the CDU. How did this all happen? Is this all because of what some are calling the Martin Schulz factor?
Well, he's certainly a breath of fresh air here in Berlin. You know, in the last weeks, he's managed to establish himself as a man of the streets. He's very approachable. He shows that he knows about the worries of the people. He has a very interesting career behind him. He has, for example, no high school degree. He started out as a small-town mayor here in Germany and then ended up being the president of the European Parliament. So internationally and on the European scene, he is very well known, but domestically not so much. And that is an advantage for him here in Berlin because he doesn't bring any political baggage domestically. He is, so to say, untainted. And that kind of reflects also in his more left-leaning platform. He, for example, wants to roll back those labor reforms that were put in place by his party, by his own party, more conservative labor reforms. He wants to get rid of them. He wants to extend unemployment benefits, focuses very much on a social justice platform, and he wants to legalize same-sex marriage. So these things are all very much in firm opposition to Angela Merkel and her Christian Democrats.
Now, all this while, the CDU had a very comfortable lead. What do these new numbers now mean for Chancellor Angela Merkel's bid to get a fourth term in office?
Well, it's certainly putting her campaign under pressure. There is now a real alternative to Angela Merkel, which there wasn't if you looked at it closely in the past couple of elections. She's running for a fourth term now, and the question is, will she have the energy? Will she be able to attack? We've been hearing that she doesn't want to start real campaigning until this summer. She hasn't laid out a clear vision yet what she wants for Germany for the next 4 years. And many in her own party are a little bit concerned about that. They want her to campaign more immediately and really have a stronger opposition to that new candidate, Martin Schulz.
Charlotte Potts at our parliamentary studios, thank you very much for that.